Hi everyone, Bernard here with the latest Citizen vlog, and it's City Pass today, so it's a moments in time vlog. We're looking at a certain date. We're going to look at the 27th of October 1990. Is in itself not overly significant. It was a high noon kickoff. I mean, there's one for the headline right straight away, wasn't it? And it was a derby. It was a derby game at Maine Road. I mean, one of those great days that could have turned out so wonderful, but perhaps it didn't in the end. But we'll talk about that. It was Manchester City versus Manchester United in the Barclays League Division 1. Please, if you're new to this little Citizen channel, you know you and your friends of City supporters, please push that old subscribe button and push the bell notification on all these little vlogs that coming out, City past and present, please. If you've got any City supporting friends, just please point them my way as well. All more than merry, it'll be absolutely fantastic. Yeah, I mean, I do highlight the 27th of October 1990 because obviously it was September 89's one that obviously gets all the hype, doesn't it? All the hype, the 5-1, the legend. I was there. I think I was there with my eldest daughter. I'm not too sure. My lad was a little bit too young. He would accompany me to this one that we're going to talk about today. But yeah, I was there in 89. What a wonderful, and we still talk about it now, don't we? I mean, it went down in legend, didn't it? It's still talked and reminisced about, certainly by fans of my age. Even with all the recent glories, we still talk about it now. Yeah, October 1990. So this was just 13 months later, to say the least. It was pretty much look forward to. I was certainly look forward to it. I mean, things had changed off the pitch that made us grow in confidence from the 13 months previously. United were still clinging on there. They were okay, but they hadn't quite become the force they were going to become. And even me, as a glass half full City fan, was tentatively optimistic anyway going to this derby match. It wasn't a time a lot of derby games I go with trepidation, certainly not for this one. And for a large part of this game, me and my son, who was aged 6 years 11 months, he would have said then, nearly just under 7. Certainly we believed a 5-1 was on the cards at one stage. And obviously he was so excited because he had missed obviously the 5-1 the season before. But obviously my half empty glass that I was thinking was half full turned out, yeah, back to half glass full setting by the time the game had ended, unfortunately. And things, sadly, after that were actually going to get worse for us as well. About the build-up, let's have a quick chat about the build-up to the game. We had a newish manager, but obviously we believed truly top manager in Howard Kendall, of course, who was in charge. This season we're talking about, we sat 3 points and 2 places above United in 5th place, so we were above them in the league, which is great. Only 9 games into the season, but we were unbeaten, and we believed anything was sort of possible, as we always did in those days. We aimed for the moon, and we might fall short, but why not? Fortress Maine Road had seen 4 league victories on the trot. We'll brush over the last home game we played before this in the Rumbelows Cup. A strong City team drawing 0-0 with Torquay United, but we'd already beaten 4-0 at their ground, so it wasn't too bad. But we'll sort of gloss over that. What about United? Well, Mr. Fergie was in charge, wasn't he? He was in his 4th season at the helm, and he'd just picked his first piece of silverware up the previous May with a victory in the FA Cup with a replay over Crystal Palace. And obviously many did say that if he hadn't brought that silverware back to Old Trafford, he would have been on his way like many managers at United before him. But obviously we all know what happened there, don't we? I mean, the game itself, there was only just 2 City players started the match who actually played in the 5-1, as I said, 13 months before. It wasn't that long. David White and Steve Redmond actually started this game and had started the 5-1 game. Lake was injured, Paul Lake was injured, and Ian Brightwell started on the bench. So he actually obviously played in the 5-1, but he was on the bench for this one. So there's only 2 actual starters in this, even though there's 4, if you like, in the squad, allowing for Paul Lake's injury. I mean, Kendall had definitely put his stamp on the squad, hadn't he? And most of us had raised eyebrows about City becoming, let's face it, another Everton, weren't we? An old-aged Everton. He was going back to Everton, nicking their players. But in the main, I mean, you're always going to get the odd ones who, in hindsight, who say, "Oh yeah, it was a bad thing, Kendall coming." But in the main, and most City fans happily went along with this because he was truly what we thought a top-class manager. And we could see from the season before, he'd steadied the boat, and obviously defensively he'd made us tighter, etc. The lineups for the day for this derby: City was Colton, Harper, Poynton. You can see all the Everton influence, can't you? Reed, Henry, Redmond, White, Heath, Quinn, Megson and Ward. Subs were Brightwell and Allen. United's their team, not a massive, fantastic team. Seeley, Irwin, Martin, Bruce, Blackmore, Pallister, Webb, Ince, McClare, Hughes, Sharp, and subs were Donaghy and Wallace. Yeah, so I didn't look at their team from the 5-1, but there's quite a lot of that team did play in the 5-1 as well. The game. Well, the journalist headlines said it all in what would become, of course, if you probably remember by now if you're of my age, but it was another 6-goal thriller. But the journalist headlines read, Peter Gardner wrote, "The Thud and Blunder Derby, Reds, City's 3-3 thriller." Yeah, it was a 6-goal thriller. Unfortunately, we shared the spoils this time. Rob Hughes headline, McClare strikes back after the Reed show. Steve Bates, blunderboss. He wasn't talking about Fergie, so we'll more on that in a moment when we talk about the game. Martin Leach, Slack City. They let Fergie's boys off the hook. We absolutely did. Bill Mills, Kendall's big blunder. Reed off and United cash in, absolutely. Kevin Francis, hot shock. Obviously, I think that was McClare's nickname, wasn't it? McClare the poacher leaves City like startled rabbits. So for our report on the game, I do go to Mr. Paul Hinch usually, but this was Peter Gardner in those days. We had Mr. Peter Gardner writing for the Manchester Evening News for this particular game. So I'm just reading from Peter Gardner's verdicts on the match. Should bring back some interesting memories. Manchester City could and should have romped the 113th derby by a distance. They didn't because the errors on and off the pitch contributed to a Manchester United salvation in a goal-scoring extravaganza. If not a match for the football purists, it was certainly one that thoroughly warmed the hearts of supporters from both sides. It didn't warm my heart. It did for a lot of the for about 80 minutes, but no, I think most City fans were bitterly disappointed. It didn't warm our hearts at all. And they are the ones that matter. City fans were anticipating a repeat of last season 5-1. We were. I think me and my lad we looked at each other. 5-1 mauling as their side twice went 2 up. But it was United who laughed last and longest when Brian McClare saved their bacon with a superb double strike to round off the best parochial dust-up in almost 2 decades. Well, it depends. From a neutral's point of view, yes. I'll just read the thing. I feel like commenting every time. Not since a similar 3-3 draw in November 1971, I was there at that one, when Sammy McIlroy scored on his league debut for the Reds in an era of truly great players, as there had been a derby that delighted so much. Talk about a high noon shootout. There you go. There's a headline. Maine Road had almost had the roof ripped off as David White scored twice in the first 5 minutes. "We want 5, yelled the Blue Faithful, and they should have had them. White should have scored the first derby hat-trick since Francis Lee slammed 3 against United in a 4-0 City landslide at Old Trafford 20 years ago. White planted a second-half header onto the crossbar when it seemed much more simple to score. At that stage, the Reds would have been dead and buried in another avalanche. It didn't happen because Howard Kendall dropped a managerial clanger, to which he later admitted when substituting veteran Peter Reid for the fresher legs of Ian Brightwell. The younger player's first act was to yield possession to McClare, who accepted the chance to make it 3-2. 3 minutes later, the Scot claimed his second, and this is after the 80th minute, and the dramatic equaliser provided perhaps a justifiable result. The problem for City is that Reid can last no more than 80 of the 90 minutes. Do they then start without Reid and bring him on to boost the victory bid? Question mark. City conceded 2 goals from United set pieces, with the other a mistake. In the process, they again proved their vulnerability in defending leads established at periods of the game when they had been much the better team. They started like a house on fire, cruelly exposing the frailties of poor United side, who for the first half hour could not string 2 passes together. Reid, even at virtual walking pace, ran the show with another exemplary midfield performance. White danced and dazzled his way through with his second goal. A gem as a goal flowed from Steve Redmond via Adrian Heath to the feet of the City striking hero. Colin Henry scored an equally splendid third when muscling through to trade passes with Niall Quinn, but then blotted his copybook by failing to pick up Steve Bruce as United launched their game-saving act. A superb, entertaining game, full of pride and passion, but what a pity the mistakes had to spoil it for the City faithful. Absolutely. I mean, I think Peter Gardner sort of summed it up for most City fans. The form guide for that game, again taken from the Manchester Evening News. The man of the match, City man of the match, was David White. Scored 2 fine goals and was denied a hat-trick when his header hit the crossbar, so close. And the form guide: Colton 7, Harper 7, Poynton 7, Reed 8, Henry 7, Redmond 7, White 9, Heath 7, Quinn 7, Megson 6, Ward 7, and the subs Ian Brightwell got a kindly 6. I mean, the goals: White on 22 and 27 minutes, Henry on 78, Hughes on 37 minutes made it 2-1 at that stage. Obviously, we made it 3-1 with Henry, didn't we? And then McClare, 80th minute and the 83rd minutes for the draw. And I do think at the time, I honestly thought United were going on to win, so we did well to hang on. The attendance on the day was, I think, the third highest in the first division, 36,427. So a bit down on the year before. I'm not too sure for the why that was. I can't remember any obvious reason. There might be something you know out there. Referee was Roger Milford of Bristol, and Mr. Peter Gardner gave him a 9 out of 10. We're very kind to referees that day. And obviously Kendall's thoughts on Howard's say. So you obviously got Howard's say. Sometimes substitutions work for you, sometimes they work against you. This is Howard Kendall. Unfortunately, this was one that worked against us. But to be honest, I would do the same again if the situation arose. Peter Reid wasn't struggling, but it was an experiment for the day when he isn't playing anymore. That's a poor excuse. However, I was still proud of the way the team played. They did well, ever so well, and it was a tremendous game for the fans. I don't know where he's getting this from. It was a tremendous game for the fans, to be honest with you. I can't understand why he's saying that. Yeah, I mean, as that report said, I am many believe. We did honestly think it was going to be another 5-1 at some stage, and even my lad was open. I think we actually talked to each other about it. Said, "Come on, we can do this. Another 5. This would be fantastic. We'd had another 5-1." So really, it was disappointing. I mean, as I say, you've got journalists there who's obviously trying to be neutral and saying what a great thing, but as City fans, we were pretty devastated. And even my young lad, even before he got to 7, was sort of learning, wasn't he? He was learning what it was like to be a City fan in those days. Even in one 90-minute game, you got all the joy and then the sort of despair. You shouldn't be overly despairing over a 3-3 draw with United, of course, but it was just the way it panned out. As I said, we were all confident we should have won, and we should have won. Peter Reid, I remember when Reid went off, I mean, most fans just looked at each other. Obviously, it was the Kippax then, just looked at each other in disbelief because, and Kendall admitted he wasn't even tired, so why do it? So a really big mistake cost us that derby game, unfortunately. A manager's mistake, not a team's mistake. The team was good enough to hang on, certainly for a 3-1 win in that game, if not to increase that lead. But you never, this was the start perhaps of a United team that you sort of never really gave up, and they weren't going to give up against City, were they? Let's be honest about it. But that was an era when United started to win things and started to do things. So we shouldn't have really done it, should we? Just a little look at some other games around the First Division that day. Some of the scores from the other games. It's just interesting, just as a matter of interest. It was Arsenal 1, Sunderland 1 0. There was 38,539 at that one. Aston Villa 0, Leeds 0. 26,000 at that one. Crystal Palace 4, Wimbledon 3. That sounds a good game. Just over 16,000. Liverpool 2, Chelsea 0. Just over 38,000. Luton 1, Everton 1. In front of 10,000. City 3, United 3. Obviously in front of just over 36,000. Notts Forest 1, Tottenham 2. That was in front of 27,000. Nigel Clough scored for Forest in that one. QPR 1, Norwich 3. Sheffield United, there was 11,000 at that one. Sheffield United 0, Coventry 1, that was 17,000 at that one. And Southampton 0, Derby 1, there was 16,000 at that one. So there you go. The ramifications, well, obviously at the end of that game, that lead left City in 5th position, United in 6th, but City still had a 3-point gap over United at that stage. But as far as the season is concerned, I mean, again, we would carry on and finish above United. Yeah, I mean, we City were finished 5th that season, United finished 6th. But again, Mr. Fergie clung on by his fingertips to his job because he actually picked up another trophy that season. He picked up the European Cup Winners' Cup. So that guaranteed him another season in charge, didn't it? And obviously, as I say, we know where it all went from there, don't we? Well, City, as I said, I did say early on, didn't it? Things could get a little bit worse, couldn't they? And perhaps not the defeat at home to Arsenal just 3 days later. We lost in the Rumbelows Cup to Arsenal, the 3rd round. Yes, we would finish 5th, but no, that wasn't the problem, was it? Very, very respectable. We finished 5th. As we know, there was never a dull moment, and it wasn't Kendall who took us there, was it? It wasn't Mr. Howard Kendall who'd ripped the heart out of the team and brought all the Everton players within days of this 3-3 result. After that total revamp of the City squad, he left us, didn't he? He left us for his true love. Yes, Everton. But perhaps more of that in an upcoming moment in time, which won't be too far away. As you're watching this, it'll be a few days away, but there'll be an interesting little moments in time of Mr. Kendall going back to his true love and leaving us in the lurch. So we'll talk about the disappointment of that in that one. But say things were after a disappointment of a 3-3 draw, or a draw against United, after a disappointment of that, it was to get worse, wasn't it? Anyway, thanks for joining me for this moments in time. The 27th of October 1990, high noon at Maine Road, Manchester. Manchester City 3, Manchester United 3 in the Barclays League Division 1. It should have been another 5-1. Anyway, please check my little links. And if I've got my little day job is movies. You're into movies and TV. I do little vlogs on that as well. And please check out my little website for old rare DVDs, movie posters from the 90s and 2000s, some board games on there as well. So if you can get a little look on that, that's movieGameNostalgia.com. That'll be absolutely fantastic. And until we meet again very soon, hopefully, I'm sure you're all on the edge of your seat waiting for this Howard Kendall special, which won't be too far away. Until we meet again on a Citizen past or present, please, I can only ask you all stay safe, Blues. What we're going to do the rest of the day. Have a great one. Look after yourselves, look after your friends, look after your family. Let's all look after each other. And thanks very much for watching. Bird is saying goodbye for now. Bye-bye.